Welcome to another episode of the Victory Podcast, driven by Audi. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by my co-host and former USC quarterback, Cody Kessler. Cody, it is a special week, a special preview episode. We're breaking down USC versus Notre Dame. I'm very excited, if you can't tell. This is going to be a fun episode.
Yeah, I'm excited, but I'm locked in this week.
You are.
I'm going to be a little more tense this episode.
Your game face is on.
Game face, and anybody that bleeds Cardinal and gold, they know how important this week is, right? We're playing for the Shillelagh. More importantly, we're playing for bragging rights.
True.
We get to go to South Bend as well, which is an unbelievable experience. I got to do that a couple times, but yeah, this is a big week. So all jokes aside, we're going to have fun. It'll be a good episode. I watched a ton of film. I'm excited for this breakdown. We'll talk a little bit about the Arizona game as well, but you can feel around campus right now the vibe. You know, we're down in the dungeon over here at Heritage, walking around, seeing some of the players. Everything's a little more tense, rightfully so, though. It should be. It's Notre Dame week. It's rivalry week. I'm excited for this one.
I just got to say, disclaimer, you also still are in quarterback mode. Like, before we started recording, you're like, lock in, let's go.
I did. This week, I'm not going to say hate, but I strongly dislike the color green. I strongly dislike the little Fighting Irish logo. I'm not a big fan of Notre Dame, and this one's personal this week, especially playing in the rivalry, getting to play in it 3 times.
Yeah, wow.
So I'm a little locked in. I'm sure there's a lot of Trojan fans out there listening right now that feel the same way. Lock in as well.
Yes,
Keely,
I will lock in.
We are.
I know.
You're going to the game in South Bend too.
I'm so excited.
I need game face, stone face the whole time.
I will probably be cold. So
yeah, you will be cold.
I will be stone faced.
Yeah, it's supposed to be raining too. We'll talk about that too.
Yeah,
the weather and stuff. But I'm getting too far ahead. Either way, yes, we will still have fun. All jokes aside, it is Notre Dame week. It's going to be a great week, and I'm excited to see what the Trojans do. This is the start of the second half of the schedule that we've been talking about since the summer almost. So we'll see what happens, and this is a great way to start going against the Fighting Irish.
For sure. Before we get into it, just a couple reminders. Be sure to subscribe and like wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's on a podcasting platform or on YouTube. We are simulcasting on the USC Athletics video channel. So if you want to subscribe there, watch how the sausage is made in real time, you can. That's how we put out the video episodes. Also, if you ever want to get your voice heard, you can look at our socials. Victory Pod USC is where you can find us on Twitter and Instagram. We usually put out a tweet or a question box asking for your thoughts, and Cody and our other co-host Dion Bailey field it so well. So we love hearing from you guys and love getting your thoughts during the season. And just a reminder about our end season schedule. We usually record on Sundays. Dion and I do a pretty brief recap episode, and then Cody, you and I come in on Wednesdays and record a half reaction, half preview episode. It's been getting where we're also getting a reaction now.
Well, it's called the preview episode, and you and Dion do such a great job of. It's almost like an instant analysis, right? As soon as the game's over, you guys get a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Do that. Then I go back and watch the film a little bit more. It's never as good as you think. It's never as bad as you think. So I have a little bit different perspective. But I love listening to Dion talk about what he sees immediately after the game. So, yeah, I listen to both of them. They're both great recaps. And then we do the preview as well about who the opponent is that week. But, yeah, it's tough to talk about who we're going to play and not talk about what we need to work on from the week before going
100%.
into that next week. So it kind of works hand in hand.
It's all a puzzle piece, a layer.
Yeah, exactly.
And on that note, I have nothing else to remind people about, so let's just get into it, Cody. The Arizona game, triple overtime for USC, the first win in program history that has come in triple overtime. I didn't realize that USC has had multiple triple overtimes, but apparently that's the first one they've had. Obviously, as we just mentioned, Cody, you do extensive previews. So in that sense, I'm curious, with all the film you watched of Arizona and obviously your knowledge of USC, how did that game play out compared to what you were expecting?
Yeah, I mean, it was actually... surprising. We'll start with the offense. Surprising for me was how slow we started. Obviously, it was the first time this year that we didn't finish in the end zone on an opening drive. And overall, we only had 365 yards total offense, which is the lowest that we've seen this year. Lowest probably going back to last year as well, outside the Oregon State game and the Washington State game. Those are 2 games that come to mind where we struggled on offense. But it was so uncharacteristic of us offensively to not only start slow, but to never get in a full rhythm throughout the game. Yes, the second half we picked it up. Even the second quarter, right? We scored 14, came back a little bit, got that momentum, which was started by the defense, a great pick by Jacoby Covington, but it never really felt like the offense was dominating at any point in the game, which was concerning for me a little bit, obviously, going into this next game, but you have to give credit to Arizona. They didn't just do it to us. They did it the week prior to Washington, and they played us differently than they played Washington the week prior too. They played a lot more man-to-man. They did a good job of pressuring us, getting pressure on Caleb. They didn't pressure Michael Penix Jr. a whole lot when they played Washington the week prior. So they mixed things up. Johnny Nansen did a great job of calling that football game. They obviously had our number early on, which was great for me, though, was that, yes, we started with 3 and outs. Then we had a big play. Then we had a fumble right after that. So we went four drives in a row with really no production and still scored 43 points in the game. I know we went to triple overtime and some of those points came there, but we still ended up coming back, played well, picked up a spark. It shows me that we can still start slow and still have a productive game and finish strong and be able to win those close football games.
I know both USC's coaches and players were proud of the fact that, it's a reflection of the culture of the locker room. If you do go down 17-0, first time USC's had a deficit this whole season, let alone the first time that their first half drive did not end up in a score. What does it say about, the resolve of the team if they are able to come back the way that they did?
Yeah, and a big part of that, and we'll get into it, yes, there are some issues with the defense. There's things that we can talk about. There's things that I saw from watching film, and Dion talked about as well, that need to get fixed. But overall, when we went down 17-0, and then we had a fumble, or then we had a turnover, and we still had nothing going on offense, that game could have been over. Right?
Yeah.
It really felt like if we go down 24-0, it would have been extremely tough. Even at home in the Coliseum with our fans there, it would have been extremely tough to come back from 24-0. But then we turn around, again, Jacoby Covington, great play on the football. The defense only held them, I think, for the rest of the game to 28 points, right? So it was 17-0. Second and third quarter, defense played very well. Held them to 20, only 11 points the rest of the game. They really set the tempo and had that spark to get the offense going, right? Then Caleb went down, scored a touchdown, and then we come back and get a great stop. Then we make it 14-17. So, yes, there are a lot of negatives. Yes, there are a lot of positives. You never want to be too high or too low, especially after a win, right? We won the football game. That's what's most important, but there are some issues that we need to work on, and there's some things we need to get fixed on both sides of the football before we go into this week.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I don't know if I've brought this up so far this season, but the Cody concern meter, if you will.
Yeah, that's a little flashback, right? There. Yeah.
What do you make of this game? Because I think it's to me, just from, I have such a unique perspective, it's weird to see, the belief from the team in that whole sentiment, and then what feels like Twitter sentiment, which, grain of salt always, but it feels like there's almost like they're at odds a little bit of how fans feel about this team versus how the team itself feels about this team. Yeah,
inside the locker room is always going to be different than outside perspective, rightfully so, right? Because they're the guys out there with the blood, sweat, and tears and going through fall camp and leaning on one another in those 5:30 a.m. workouts and doing all those extra hours, because it's not just the product on the field, right? There are so many extra hours that you put in, whether it's by yourself watching film, working out in the off season with your own personal coach, or being here around Coach Wiley and his staff, doing those early morning workouts. When you come in and there's two groups and the first group's on the ground, drenched in sweat, tired, and okay, I'm about to go, but they just got it done. So let me go do this for my brother. Let me go work hard for these guys so it'll pay dividends in the season. So that part goes into it, and that's what you lean on when you have tough games, when you have fans on the outside, even people outside of our fan base that are saying USC's not good, their defense can't get it done, not a national contender. You look back to those moments when you're leaning on one another and the conversations you have in the locker room and the film room to where you have a different perspective than the outside world. Now, from the outside looking in, we judge Saturdays, right? That's all we look at. We don't look at the offseason work. We do a little bit, spring ball, fall camp. You can come up with some storylines to keep people entertained before season starts. But as a fan, what really matters is your win-loss record, right, in the fall, and how you do in the postseason, how you do in conference play. Do you go to the conference championship? That's what we judge a productive season off of, or a successful season. So, yes, there are two different perspectives when it comes to that sense. But as a former player, I'm as a quarterback, and especially being Caleb Williams right now, like, hey, we're winning close games. We're learning how to win tough games both on the road and at home. We know that we can come back from 17-0 in a deficit. Yes, Arizona's not going to be a top, nationally ranked team. They're a good football team, though. They do have good players. They deserve more credit than they've been given this week, especially post-game with how close the game was. But overall, as a player in that locker room right now, I'm thinking I'm 6-0. Right? We're leaning on one another. We're learning a lot about this football team, and everything, all of our goals that we started with before week 0 are still in front of us. So there's no panic. There's no reason to hit the panic button. Cody concern meter, I'm siding with the players on this one. There's really not a big concern for me because I know that everything we want to do and everything we want to accomplish is still in front of us. But I will say, to the concern from fans and everything we see on Twitter, that is justified. I do understand that. Right now that I'm on the outside looking in as well, the schedule is going to be a lot tougher going forward. And we're struggling in some areas against teams that aren't as good, and just call it how it is, that aren't as good as Notre Dame, that aren't as good as Oregon, who has a top 10 defense and a top 10 offense, who isn't as good as Washington or even UCLA playing well. Utah's defense scares me, right? They don't have Cam Rising yet, but there are very good football teams ahead of us in this schedule. So I do completely understand. It is justified, the concern from the outside looking in and saying, hey, things need to get fixed, and they need to get fixed fast. I'm just kind of giving a different perspective as a former player of as you have to block out all that outside noise, whether it's our fans or national media, and know, hey, we're 6-0. Everything we want to do is still ahead of us. Let's go out there and take care of it and get the problems that are an issue right now. Let's get those fixed so there's nothing else to say going forward.
From your perspective, why was the offense not clicking? Was it more what Arizona was doing, or was it the USC itself not getting it done?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, Arizona played a great game defensively, and just going over the numbers, 43 points, still a lot of points. Yes, a lot of those were in triple overtime, so we did have to score multiple times to stay in the football game after the end of regulation. But total yards, 365. Total passing yards, 219, which is very low to Caleb's standards, right? And to this offense in general, one of the top passing offenses in all of college football. Total rushing yards, 146. Now, where I'm really concerned, and which was frustrating for me to watch, third down, 3 of 9, only 33%. You have to be better on third down.
Yeah.
And we talked about in the episode prior, how do you keep your defense off the field? How do you eliminate the defense going out there and having extra possessions, having to go against Arizona's offense? You convert on third down. You extend drives. You have those 8, 10, 12 play drives, and you take time off the clock. We struggle a little bit with that throughout the game, and that hurts your defense in the long run. Now, going to the individual stats, Caleb, 14 to 25, 56%, which is very low to what his standards are. And you know, that's calling it how it is. He was off that night, right? Accuracy-wise, he had some missed throws that we're not used to seeing him miss. Didn't turn the football over, though, and I mean through the air. Love seeing that, 219 yards, 1 touchdown. But where I love from Caleb, and there have been some questions this year, he's not running enough. He's not using his legs enough. That's why he's so good, is because he's an exceptional thrower of the football, but he's also exceptional at running the football. And maybe not just being a pure Lamar Jackson where it's I'm going to pull it and run and make 10 guys miss, but he knows when to run, and when he does, he's very good. Normally you have a guy that is a great thrower, can run a little bit, or you have a guy that's a great running quarterback, a dual threat that can, has accurate issues, but he's okay. Caleb excels at both, right? And that's where that really kept us in the football game. 12 carries, 41 yards, and 3 touchdowns on the ground. And then overall, the rest of the stats, Marshawn Lloyd at 86 yards and a touchdown. Austin Jones, great touchdown there in overtime. Receiver-wise, in my opinion, Brendan Rice is established himself as that guy now. Yeah. I think it's safe to say he's the number one target.
Yeah.
A close second behind him is Taj Washington. And then we have Mario Williams and Kyron Hudson had a touchdown as well. But who we did miss, in my opinion, is Zachariah Branch. That was someone that struggled, especially with how much man-to-man Arizona played. You've got to have a guy that's going to be dominant, and not just one, but multiple guys in the slot that can beat man-to-man pressure.
Yeah, what specifically changes when you add Zachariah Branch to the lineup?
He's just so much fun to watch. He's so explosive, and that's not taking anything away from Taj or Mario. But you see Mario has played a little bit more on the outside this year. Taj is a very good slot receiver, but Taj and Zachariah have different skill sets. In my opinion, Taj is not as quick and shifty. He has speed in the long run. We saw him against Colorado take that one play, that third down, and go for 70+ and outrun everybody. But Zachariah Branch is so good at being quick and shifty in the slot, and it's almost like the Allen Iverson quickness, right? The crossover. He's quick with the crossover. He's tough to contain an open field, and Arizona did play a lot of man against us, which surprised me, and it is concerning a little bit that we weren't getting open, especially when Caleb got outside the pocket and was elusive in the pocket. There were multiple times on film where you see him looking downfield and guys are just magnets. No one's getting open. No one's creating separation, you're not used to seeing that from this team as well, is struggling in the scramble drill, right? If you're up top, you come back down to the football. If you're down low, you can take it up high. Mismatch, we struggle with that when guys weren't getting open. And that's where guys like Zachariah Branch are missed. And that's where you need to be able to win in man-to-man, because we're going to play better athletes on defense, and we're playing this Notre Dame team that's a top 5 team in coverage. They do play a lot of man-to-man, and they're very good at it. If we can't get open, that's going to be a concern going in the second half of the season.
What did you make of USC's RPO game, though?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's something I noticed throughout the game was, and that deep throw to Brendan Rice. Right after that, the fumble was because Caleb struggled a little bit in the read, which we're not used to seeing from him. He's normally so good at making the right decisions on RPOs, but whatever the reason was against Arizona, he was just struggling a little bit. And I think a big part of that is the confidence side of things. It's not saying he doesn't have confidence, but when you start that slow on offense, it's tough to get in a rhythm. And playing quarterback, and we've talked about before, being in the zone, right, blocking everything out, when you're struggling a little bit, it's tough to get in a rhythm. It's tough to have that confidence that you normally have, that swagger that Caleb plays with, where he's kind of walking around and doing the celebrations and the crown on the head and all that.
I mean, he still was on Saturday.
He did at the end of the game.
Yeah.
But early on, when you're not playing well, you don't have that moxie or that swagger to you early on, and that's something where he struggled, and that'll affect your decision making, right? That'll, again, saw him pull the ball. He should have gave it to Marshawn Lloyd. Instead, he pulled it. Now he has 2 defenders on him. No one's open, and we get a fumble. Then a couple plays later, pulls it again. Should have gave it, and you know, there's no one open in front of him. He can't kick it out, and now we take a loss. Then later on in the game, gives it to Marshawn Lloyd, takes an 8-yard loss when he should have pulled it and kicked it to Lake McCree or took off and ran. So there were a couple times uncharacteristic of this offense, and specifically Caleb, of making the wrong decisions on RPOs, and that really hurts when you're not on in the passing game and you don't have a rhythm, something that's our bread and butter, which is giving you that run-pass option. We're not doing it well. It's tough to get in a rhythm on offense.
Is this a case of everyone has their off night, or is this a case of Johnny Nansen really knew how to attack this specific USC offense?
Yeah, I think it's just a combination of both. Like I said, Arizona did a great job, and you got to give credit to Johnny Nansen. But overall, I'm leaning more towards the side of we just had an off night, right? We had an off night, but we still put up 43 points. Had 3 3-and-outs. Then we had a turnover on the 4th drive. Can still come back and win a football game and get back on track was big to see. And also, when you have Caleb Williams on your team, you're always going to have a chance to win.
Now over to the defense. I thought it was interesting kind of just picking up body language and just cues, if you will, in the post-game press conference. Both head coach Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams were visibly frustrated with the questions they were getting about the defense, especially because, they were like, we won this game because of the defense and what they were able to do and give the offense time to get it together. And Caleb even kind of jumped in after a question that was fielded for Lincoln, and he said, I want to say, like, these are my brothers. Like, you could tell he was frustrated, basically, by the defensive questions. And so Riley was asked on Tuesday after practice, is there something that the outside isn't seeing about the defense? Like, what is your perception of what's going on? And so he had a passionate answer, probably one of the more passionate things that we've heard him say to the media. So much so that I'm actually just going to drop this in his little soundbite in right now, and then we can talk about it, Cody.
How long do you got? I mean, again, you get to that point, and in games like that, and somebody's got to make the play to turn it around. And the reality is, in regulation, look, here's the deal. We kicked that field goal and went in regulation. We're all talking about how the defense gave up only 11 points the rest of the day, and they started the entire run that got us back on the same page. But it's one field goal that we don't make, that the defense has no control over, and then all everybody wants to do is just look at the final score and say, oh, well, this and that, and it just doesn't tell the entire story. And so Caleb was exactly right. It's what we've been trying to say. We're not hiding from the areas that we got to continue to make improvement, and there certainly are some, but this is a much improved unit. There's no question about it. And this is a unit, I think, when you talk about the top end potential, has a chance to really grow and get better fast, given some of the youth, some of the new people, some of the quality depth that we have, some of the injuries that we've had that have prevented guys from being able to continually get snaps. But there's a lot of good things happening on this defense, man. Like, you don't sit there and do what we're doing in TFLs, do what we're doing in sacks. Like, there's so many great things. But here's the deal. Everybody in the media had their mind made up, all right? Now, I won't generalize. A lot of people in the media had their mind made up that the first second there was any adversity this year, saying, oh my God, should have done this, and they should have made this change, and blah, blah, blah. And it's not true. Like, you're going to go through the whole year. You're going to have a tough game. Like, you're going to have a tough quarter. Do you respond? Right? Do you show continued growth? And that's going to continue to be written throughout the entire year. But there's a lot of great things happening here, and we'll own the things that need to get better. But people need to make sure they're seeing the other side of it as well. And that's what we've been trying to say for a long time. And I think both myself and Caleb and some other players, I think, we're venting a little bit of frustration with that, to be completely honest. So I like the job we're doing there. I think we're set up to play really well the second half of the season, and I can promise you, inside these walls, there is no expectation other than to play high level here in the second half of this year.
Let's do one more.
Y'all didn't think you were getting all that, did you?
Yeah, I mean, I like what he's saying there. I love what he said at the end, too. You probably didn't expect to get that much out of me.
Yeah.
But again, that's your head football coach, right? He's going to defend his team first. Yes, he may hear the criticism. Yes, he may hear some of the outside noise. But at the end of the day, he's going to stick up for his football team, as he should. And he did acknowledge there are issues. There's things that need to be fixed. Yes, but outside of that, we're close. We're worried about what's going on in this locker room. And again, he made a great point. After going 17-0 and the offense is struggling, Jacoby Covington had a great interception there. And then they only held him to 11 points the rest of the game. They allowed our offense to get back into it. But I look at that from a player perspective when Lincoln Riley says that, and Caleb frustrated after the game. I'll put it this way. If I'm a quarterback and my defense, and I'm struggling a little bit, and I have some issues, and it's not a secret, right? There are some things that the defense needs to work on, but from an offensive standpoint, if I'm a quarterback and I'm missing some throws or I'm throwing some picks and I'm struggling, but we're 6-0, but we're winning football games, my confidence will be rattled a little bit, but it's going to make it worse if I have a defense go out there, guys on the defensive side of the ball, or a defensive coordinator goes out there and says, hey, we're doing great on defense. Kessler needs to pick it up. Kessler's struggling. Kessler's this. Kessler's playing bad. He's not giving us a chance to win. Confidence is crushed because now I feel like I'm losing my football team. I'm losing my coaches. But if I had Dion Bailey or my head coach or Sua Cravens or Hayes Pilar, Devon Kennard, guys I played with that were leaders on defense that said, hey, yeah, there's some issues, but Cody's our quarterback. That's our guy. He's so close. He's right there. We're going to follow him. He's our leader of this football team. We're going to go as far as he will take us. That's going to boost my confidence. That's going to know, okay, my guys still have my back. And by the way, we're undefeated as well. There's always going to be issues on football teams that need to get fixed. There's always going to be things that are a cause for concern as you go throughout the season. That's what Lincoln said. You're going to have games that aren't pretty. You're going to win close games. This team is winning close football games. That's the most important part, both at home and on the road. Yes, is the schedule going to get tougher these next 6 weeks? Sure. That's why I'm still kind of hesitant to say, okay, I'm going to learn more about this team this week against Notre Dame. And then when we play Utah and Washington and Oregon, we're going to learn so much more about where this football team's really at than what we're learning right now, right? There's things that need to get cleaned up. I agree with that fully. I do think we need to be better with missed tackles. I do think we need to be better at being more aggressive downhill, especially when we send guys on pressure. We need to get home when we bring pressure because you're leaving less people in the back end for coverage. Yes, we need to cover better. Yes, we need to solidify who the corners are going to be. You can look at offense as well and say the same thing. There's things that are going to be issues on both sides of the ball, but at the end of the day, I love what Lincoln's saying because this is his football team. I'm going to stick up for them. I'm going to have their back regardless, and we win and lose as a team. We're not going to point fingers. We're not going to blame. As a fan, we can do that. As a media, as people on the outside looking in, you can do that. You can say, hey, these are things that need to get fixed. These are issues going on from an outside standpoint. But at the end of the day, Lincoln's not going to say that. And it sounds like, to me, I'm not going to say fans, some Trojan family outside, some people outside looking in want him to come out and say, this, and this is wrong. He's not going to say that. He's a leader of this football team. He's going to continue to stick up for his guys, and they're worried about what goes on in that locker room. And the last thing I'll say on that is he made a comment last week about the untrained eye, right? And I think it rubs some people the wrong way. And he made a comment about, from a coach's standpoint, it's different. It's not saying that you're not justified or validated to have an opinion. You absolutely can. That's why I love this game of football, is because we can have these open discussions and talk about where a team needs to get better or where a team's great at. It makes it a lot more fun, right? It makes everyone feel involved. But he's saying that in the sense of, you're not in the meeting rooms. To Lincoln Riley and his staff, I played football for 15 years. To the defense, to even the offense, I'm an untrained eye, right? I played football my whole life.
Yeah.
I'm not a trained eye when it comes to what they're talking about in the meeting room, what they're trying to accomplish. What an issue with last week isn't an issue this week, right? I can make general statements about it and things that I see and look at the numbers and say, okay, we can improve here. But overall, I'm still an untrained eye to that point. So I'm still out. I think the jury's still out for me. I know there's both sides. People want to say the sky is falling, everything's going wrong, everything's an issue. Or there's people saying, hey, we're 6-0. I'm more on that side. I do understand both sides of saying, hey, there are cause for concern. But at the end of the day, we're 6-0. Everything's still in front of us, and we're getting ready to play freaking Notre Dame this week. Let's go. Let's quit focusing on the past. Let's worry about the future. Let's get ready to go this week and go get the shillelagh and bring it back to California.
Now, I want to get into the preview, but I have a couple more questions for you.
Keep it in California. I'm sorry. We did win last week. I don't want that. Notre Dame does not have the shillelagh. I don't want to give them any credit. Let's keep the shillelagh in California, down here in Southern California. But yes, go ahead.
I'm just curious what you saw overall, because if you listen to our last episode together, one of the things you said was the offense itself needs to play defense in the sense that they're extending drives. They're taking longer to have plays develop. And yet it was the complete opposite against Arizona. It was basically the pendulum swing from what we said this defense needed to get on the right foot. And yet the defense still was able to hold the score to a reasonable amount to where USC did come back and win the game. So, like, what did you see overall from this defense and the effort they put out on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that quote was very important to add in there. That's been a huge topic for this team. I love how transparent Lincoln Riley was right there. But going back to the regular victory pod, I'm a big numbers guy, so we'll get into the stats. And this is where I do fall a little bit on the side of concern. Issues that we would like to see get fixed before we go into this tougher part of the schedule. But total points for Arizona, 41. Total yards, 506. That's 2 weeks in a row that we have given up over 500 yards. You like to see that number a little bit lower. Total passing yards, 303. Total rushing yards, 203. The biggest thing for me, and going back to your question right here, is third down. 8 of 16 Arizona was, and they had a 50% conversion rate. You have to be better to help yourself get off the field. Yes, the offense can help you extend drives, but you have to take credit or take responsibility of being dominant on third down, getting off the field, allowing the offense to go out there and have those long drives, and also the gotta-have-it situations. Arizona was 2 of 2 on fourth down. We have to be better in those areas. And going to the individual stats, Noah Fafita, 25 of 35, 71%, 303 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. You can't allow a freshman to come in for his first home start. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong. He played better than I think a lot of people thought. It's going to be interesting to see, too, when Jaden DeLora gets healthy. And I'm very high on DeLora. But Fafita is playing at a high level right now. And he played at a high level against Washington and SC, 2 top 10 teams in back-to-back weeks.
Jetfish said Jaden DeLora is our quarterback. So
okay, well, there you go. But I'll tell you what, they've got a bright future in Fafita. He played very well. So I do got to give him credit there. Very smart with the football as well. But as a defense, you don't want to see that. You can't allow a freshman to come in and make his first ever start in a road environment and go for 300 yards and 5 touchdowns, right? You've got to be better there. Running or on the ground, Jonah Coleman, their running back, 22 carries, 143 yards, averaging over 6 yards a carry. Would like to see that slow down a little bit.
He was a bruiser.
He was a good, and DJ Williams as well. Physical running backs, and they surprised me. They were better than what I thought.
Same.
You know, they played well, and you've got to give credit where credit's due. They have talent on that football team. It's not like Arizona of the past where it was, okay, we got Arizona, easy game. They've got a very good coaching staff. Now Johnny Nanson's doing a great job on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, Brendan Carroll, Pete Carroll's son, is calling a very good a scheme and a game plan on the offensive side of the ball, and Jed Fish is a great leader. So they have the pieces in place, and they have players in place, and 2 of those guys are that I'm happy we're not going to have to face, hopefully ever again, is wide receiver Teteroa McMillan and wide receiver Jacob Cowing. And if you remember, in our scouting report and in our keys to the game, take those 2 guys out of the game, and you give yourself a great chance of running away with this one. We did not do that, right? 6 receptions, 138 yards for McMillan, 10 receptions, 88 yards, and 4 touchdowns for Cowing. That goes back to what we talked about the week prior with Miller from Colorado, with Dalton Kincaid, with Michael Mayer, with guys. We can't allow one player to dictate a game, to dominate a game, and we just had no answer for Cowing, especially in overtime, right? One play, back shoulder throw to him on Prophet Brown. The next one was on Kalen Bullock. Great route, but we've got to be able to key on the guys that are hurting us throughout the game, and obviously Cowing was that. So overall, not pretty. It wasn't perfect, but again, back to Lincoln's point, did a great job of, after going down 17-0, got an explosive play, got an interception with Jacoby Covington, sparked this offense. When you get a play like that on defense, not only do you spark your offense, you spark the crowd, got the crowd back into the game, got the momentum going again. But yeah, overall, I think we did a good job second, third quarter. Just would have liked to see us better at the beginning of the game, and like to see us a little bit better there in the fourth quarter overtime, holding Arizona, not making it as easy it was for them to score. But overall, I'm still waiting for this week. I'm excited for this week. Let's see what happens this week. We'll learn a lot more about this football team going into this Notre Dame game.
Well, let's jump into the preview. Before we do, just want to give a thanks to Audi. Performance is more exhilarating on a real road. Introducing the Audi Q5. Visit your SoCal Audi dealers, proud sponsors of the USC Trojans. And at Ralph's, everyone wins when it comes to saving big, because when you order online through the Ralph's app, you get the same great prices, deals, and rewards on pickup or delivery that you do in store. So no matter how you shop, you always save big at Ralph's. Ralph's, fresh for everyone. Fight on. Cody, it's time. Notre Dame, USC. I know you like to start with the coaches first. So who are we looking at when it comes to Notre Dame's head coach?
Yeah, we'll start with the head coach, Marcus Freeman. This is his second season leading the Irish. Notre Dame this year is 4-2 under Freeman. They lost to Ohio State earlier in the year, and then they just lost last week against Louisville. His previous coaching jobs and how he led to this Notre Dame job was in 2016, he was a co-defense coordinator, linebacker coach at Purdue. Then at Cincinnati, when Cincinnati had that run and was playing very good football, he was a defensive coordinator and linebacker coach from 2017 to 2020. And then he was the Notre Dame defensive coordinator in 2021, and then eventually took over as head coach when Brian Kelly left. And then their offensive coordinator is, okay, so this threw me off a little bit. It's Gerard. How would you say that first name? Gerard.
G-E-R.
I'm testing you right now.
Jared.
Okay, it's Jared, right?
I wanted to say Gerard.
I said Gerard when I was doing the preview. I was literally going over it and like, okay, Gerard this, where's Gerard from? Where's he, this and that. And then I'm like, wait a minute, that's Jared. But it threw me off
Jared.
a little bit. Yeah, so their offensive coordinator, and last year it was Tommy Rees, who's now gone. So they now have a new offensive coordinator. His name is Jared Parker. First season as offensive coordinator. Previous coaching jobs was the Purdue interim head coach in 2016 with Freeman. Then in 2017 was Cincinnati running back coach with Freeman. So he has a relationship with these guys. That's why they're still in his coaching staff. And then 2019, he was at Penn State as a pass game coordinator. 2020 to 2021, Parker was the offensive coordinator at West Virginia. And then in 2022, he was a tight end coach before taking over for Rees. And then the defensive coordinator is a name that I'm sure a lot of football fans are familiar with, Al Golden, going into his second season at Notre Dame, but he's been coaching since 1993.
Wow.
Which is actually when I was born, year I was born.
Wow.
So he's been coaching
Before
for 30
me.
years. Yeah. But he's very experienced coach both at the college and the NFL level. His previous coaching jobs where he was a head coach at the University of Miami from 2011 to 2015. Then from 2016 to 2019, went to the NFL, coached tight ends and linebackers for the Lions. And then most previously, before going to Notre Dame, he was the linebacker coach for the Cincinnati Bengals from 2020 to 2021. So he was a part of that staff that went to the Super Bowl, ended up losing to the Rams. But overall, a coaching staff with a lot of experience between them.
Now, looking at this Notre Dame offense, as you mentioned, it's a first-year OC. So what have we seen so far from this new Notre Dame offense?
Yeah, let's start with the stats. I'm a numbers guy, so we'll start there. So overall total points, 34 points per game, which is 35th in all of college football. Total yards, 438 yards per game, which is 34th in college football. Total passing yards, obviously the transfer they got, Sam Hartman, 266 yards per game, 41st in all of college football. And then total rushing yards is 171 yards per game, which is 53rd in college football, which is surprisingly low because you hear about how good Notre Dame is at running the football. But a big part of that is because of Audric Estime, and we'll get into the key players in a second. But he really is their run game. They want the ball to go to him. They do have some other backs, but he is their primary back. That's why a lot of that 171 yards per game is all Audric Estime.
Okay.
But third down on the year, they've struggled a little bit there, 43% conversion rate there. And then on fourth down, they've gone for it 10 times, converted 6 of them. So 60% on fourth down, and they're not afraid to go for it.
So this feels like another week where the key players, the red dots, you kind of already alluded to here, Cody.
Yeah, first and foremost, obviously the quarterback. And it's tough talking about red dot guys on offense not to pick the quarterback. Unless it's a quarterback, and really for the last 6 games, it's probably going to be the quarterback. But Notre Dame's got a good one in Sam Hartman, the transfer from Wake Forest. 6'1", 210 pounds, 64% completion percentage on the year, over 1,700 yards, 16 touchdowns, and only 3 picks. But those 3 picks all came against Louisville from last week.
So did you watch that tape?
I did. Watch the full game.
Why would 3 picks show up in that game in particular?
And we'll get into it.
Okay, sorry.
But
I know I'm jumping the gun here.
No, pressure. Louisville did such a great job of putting pressure on Hartman, and he's an experienced player. He's a senior. He's a captain. He's a leader of that football team. But for whatever reason, he just crumbled under pressure. And I'm not saying that in a negative way, talking bad about him, but he was off his game. He was missing easy throws that you see him make against Ohio State. You see him make earlier in the year. He was missing an easy in cut to the tight end that he overthrew by 5 yards, right? Sail on the football, forcing the football, underthrowing fade routes when he had a guy in his face. So Louisville did a great job of getting pressure on him and forcing him to make throws or miss throws that we're used to seeing him make. And a big part of that as well is my other red dot guy, Audric Estime, took him out of the football game. Had 10 carries for 20 yards, only averaged 2 yards per carry. They did such a great job of making Notre Dame one-dimensional that they struggled to get anything going. But again, That's not the case week in and week out. That's why Audric Estime is my other red dot guy. 105 carries on the year, 692 yards, averaging 6 yards a carry. He's fast, he's powerful, he's everything you want. He's going to be playing on Sundays. One of the best backs in all of college football. 5'11", 225 pounds. The other guy that they'll give the ball to a little bit is running back Jeremiah Love, 6'1", 195-pound freshman. A little bit more of their speed back, has 36 carries for 257 yards. My other red dot guy, and this is an important one because last year we saw what Michael Mayer did to us here at the Coliseum.
Yeah.
My next red dot guy is tight end Mitchell Evans, 6'5", 260-pound junior. He is their lead, I don't want to say receiver because he's a tight end. He's their lead pass catcher on this football team. 22 catches, 343 yards, and one touchdown. And then the other guys they like to throw the ball to is Chris Tyree, who is a former running back who's now transitioned to a wide receiver. And then their other two wide receivers are Jaden Thomas and Jaden Greathouse, two very good players. Jaden Greathouse is a very exciting freshman. He's kind of the guy that likes to beat you over the top. 12 receptions, 166 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And then the last guy, not a red dot guy, but I did highlight him in red. Their other tight end, Holden Stays, 6'4", 240 pounds, 8 receptions, and 4 touchdowns. So when we get in the red zone, find Stays and find Evans, the 2 tight ends. That's who they like to look for. Those are Sam Hartman's favorite targets down there in the red zone.
Talk about productivity.
Yeah. 8 catches
That's efficient.
and off those 8 catches, he has 139 yards as well.
Wow.
And 4 of those, again, are touchdowns. So very explosive offense, very experienced offense, but they don't really do one thing better than the other. They're a very balanced team that likes to use the run game. They'll get into power formation, and then they'll also get in spread. They like to be very balanced and have a great run game and also have a great pass game.
So if you are to make Notre Dame one-dimensional, what's the bigger priority? Take away Hartman or take away Estime?
Yeah, I'm going with Audric Estime. Again, Louisville did such a great job of containing not only Estime but the entire run game of Notre Dame. Estime 10 carries, 20 yards. Notre Dame averaged 1.6 yards per carry last week against Louisville, 28 carries for 44 yards.
Wow.
That forced Sam Hartman to have to throw the football to get back in the game. They had no run game. They do such a great job, like I said, of being balanced or run power. We'll use pulling guard, pulling tackle. A little different than SC. They don't run it a whole lot from the shotgun. They'll get in a 2-3 tight end set and go straight. Old school power football, give it to Estime, let him run downhill. And he can, again, like I said, he can run you over, he can run around you, he can take it the distance. So he's a very good back. But Louisville did such a great job, again, of making Notre Dame one-dimensional. And Sam Hartman is a good quarterback. He's one of the better quarterbacks in college football, but he's not a Caleb type, a Bo Nix type, a Michael Penix Jr. type, where he wants to drop back, throw it 50 times a game, and pick you apart all night and have 500 passing yards, 400 passing yards, and then also have a couple plays where he can take off and run with his legs. He's very good at being a game manager, playing within the system, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Last week was an outlier. Before the Louisville game, he had no interceptions and no turnovers on the entire year. Yeah. So he likes to play efficient football and allow his run game to be dominant and then feed off of that. So for me, the biggest thing for us this week is let Caleb go. Let's get a lead early on, right? Let's get ahead of them early on, force them to have to throw the football, and let's take away Estime in the ground.
Now I'm looking at your notes here, and you said that Louisville played man really well against Notre Dame. What's interesting is heading into this game, USC is not at 100% with its secondary health. Riley talked about how both Jacoby Covington and Christian Roland Wallace were not 100% on Tuesday. It's interesting what you do with that. Did they come back out with Prophet Brown? Riley did indicate that they should see Damani return on Saturday, but if this is a game where you need to play lockdown man coverage, you're not doing it with the people who normally you would put in that place. Yeah,
and that's a great point. And yeah, Louisville did such a good job of, and we talked about how do you slow down Hartman? What made him uncomfortable? Why was he, having so many interceptions, missing throws? Because of the pressure. But a big part of that were covered sacks. They weren't afraid. They came out and said, we're going to play man-to-man. We're going to play man-to-man on your big tight ends. We're going to play man-to-man on the outside with your speedy receivers, with your running back that's now a receiver who can take the top off the defense. We're going to play man. We're going to stay on top of them, and we're going to be physical at the line of scrimmage. We have to do that this week. But if we don't have guys out there that we can trust to play man-to-man, and I'm not saying I love when a defense or a secondary or as a player you're challenged, right? I want people to say, hey, USC can't do this, won't be able to do this. Let's go out there and challenge that. Let's go out there and prove them wrong. But if we see early on that we can't play man-to-man, we're going to have to get into some of these zone coverages. But a big part of that is I would like to see a one high coverage, maybe bring down a safety in the box, bring down Max Williams, bring down Bryson Shaw, maybe even rotate Kalen Bullock down there, even though he's so great at playing that center field position. I wouldn't mind putting him down in the box, being a little bit more physical, a little bit bigger player, because we have to be able to stop the run game. And that's what Louisville did, right? They loaded the blocks, played man-to-man outside, and said, hey, beat us with our receivers, and you're not going to get anything going in between the tackles. And they did a great job of filling the holes, coming downhill at the linebacker position, something that we need to do this week that we struggled with a little bit last week. We struggled a little bit against Colorado, right? Colorado, the last-ranked rushing offense in the entire country, gave up 193 yards on the ground. We weren't coming downhill fast. We weren't filling the holes like we needed to. We have to play a complete football game on the defensive side of the ball to slow down this Notre Dame offense, and that's what Louisville did. But most importantly, how you slow down this Notre Dame offense is get the lead early from our offense, right? Let's go start fast, allow Caleb to get the lead, and force his team to become one-dimensional and play from behind.
And Hartman's not a running quarterback.
No.
Do we see differences in what we've seen from USC's defense, considering what they've seen running quarterbacks prior to this game?
Yeah, and for me, I think we're going to see, and we get some questions about this, so I don't want to get too far ahead, but my biggest question mark this week is, what is the personnel grouping going to look like? Are
100%.
we going to? How much is Jalen Smith going to play, and how much are we going to go 3 linebacker looks this week? How much are we going to change that up? You know what I'm saying?
Interesting.
Just because this is not a Pac-12 team, right? This is not an opponent that we're used. This isn't an Arizona. This isn't a Colorado, a team that's going to get out there, spread you out, and throw the ball over the field, have a couple run plays here and there. But this is a team that is a down. Yes, they'll get in spread. I'm not saying that this is an old school pro style offense that doesn't throw the ball around. They will do that. They have a good quarterback in Hartman, but they want to get in these power formations and run the football downhill. And they like throwing the ball out of 2 tight end sets as well, especially down in the red zone. So biggest question for me this week is who's going to be on the field and what personnel grouping is going to be out there the most.
And is the wrinkle on top of that their tight end? Like how does USC approach a tight end in this iteration of this defense?
Yeah, so who's going to cover them? If we do play man to man, who's going to cover them?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not just Evans. You have Stays as well down in the red zone. How are we going to cover both of those tight ends? Because we don't have to worry about just one this week. We have to worry about 2 different guys, and then they also have some good receivers outside as well. So this is going to be our toughest challenge. And I'm sure everybody, I'm not saying anything that's breaking news. Obviously, this is our first ranked opponent that we're playing this year, a very good Notre Dame football team. Don't let the record confuse you. They could have easily won that game against Ohio State last week. Louisville did expose them a little bit, and like I said, and I'm explaining how they did that, but still a very good football team and our toughest opponent yet so far this year.
Artie, any other thoughts about Notre Dame's offense?
The final thing I'll say, in my red dot this week, I'm putting red dots on our own team, on our defense.
Oh.
The front 4. This is the biggest game. We've talked so much about how improved they are, and not just 4 specific guys, that unit as a whole, whoever's out there, 4 or 5, if we want to bring in a DN and a rush, however that front is going to look, those front 4 or 5 guys that we have this week, this is their week to prove that this unit is improved, that this unit can go out and dominate and play a tough, physical type of an opponent that we're going to see not only, in Notre Dame, but going, forward in the future, something we didn't have last year. So my red dot this week, I'm putting some on our defense. Our front 4, our front 5 need to play phenomenal football, and I'll extend that even to the linebacker group as well.
Well, this is the difference we've been talking about when it comes to USC's defense this season. This is the talent or the personnel groupings that we just didn't see from USC last year. So it's kind of, is this like a put up or shut up? Like, we'll see what they're made of?
This is the week for Bear Alexander to lead those guys and get them going and rally that defensive line. And like I said, even the linebacker group, that front 7, but more specifically the defensive line this week, this is your week to prove that you're better from last year and that you can go out there and dominate a physical offensive line that Notre Dame has.
Now, over on to Notre Dame's defense. This is the second defense so far this season for USC that is facing a Caleb Williams-led offense for the second time. What do you expect from this defense?
Yeah, and I'll start with the stats. This is the best defense we're going to play so far this year, specifically the best defense that can counter what we do well. And what I mean by that is total points. They're only giving up 15 points per game, which is 15th in college football. Total yards allowed, they're holding their opponents to 280 yards a game, 12th in college football. And the biggest thing that they do well, total passing yards allowed, only 146 yards per game. They have the 3rd ranked passing defense in all of college football, right? And we have the number 1 ranked passing offense in college football, the number 1 quarterback in all of college football. That is going to be a huge matchup. I can't wait to watch that on Saturday. And they're also pretty decent in the run game. That's where they struggle a little bit, though. Rushing yards allowed per game, 132, which is 58th in college football. They've been very good on third down, only holding their opponents to 38%, and then on fourth down, holding their opponents to 64%. So the numbers-wise, this is by far, and even the players, we'll get in that in a second, but numbers-wise, this is going to be the toughest matchup USC has faced this year, and coming off probably their worst performance we've seen this year as an offense. So all eyes are going to be on the Trojan offense this week.
Now, Lincoln Riley previewed this defense as one of the oldest defenses that they'll face this season. What does that mean as far as key players?
Yeah, he's 100% right. And I'll read you just going down the line, right? So I'll start with my first red dot guy, D-line Howard Cross, the third, 42 tackles, which leads the team, 1 sack, 2 forced fumbles, senior, right? 6 foot, 280 pounds. The next guy is their linebacker, another red dot guy, JD Bertrand, 6'1", 230 pounds, senior. 41 tackles, 1 sack, 2 pass defense. He is the leader of their defense. That's who you want to find. Find Bertrand every time on the field. He'll tell you what they're doing. Love to walk him up in pressure, love to move him around, but he's kind of the tell-all guy on the defensive side of the ball, and then some other guys. Linebacker Jack Kaiser, senior. D-line Javante Jean-Baptiste, senior. Safety Xavier Watts, my other red dot guy. 29 tackles, 3 pass defense, and 2 interceptions. He's very good in the box, and he's very good in coverage. 5'11", 200-pound senior. Their other safety, DJ Brown, senior. D-line Jordan Botello, senior. He leads the team in sacks, 19 tackles, 2 sacks. And then D-lineman Riley Mills, 6'5", 300-pound senior. And then the other guy that I have, their first outlier in this group, their cornerback, their best cover corner, in my opinion, Benjamin Morrison, 6 foot, 185 pounds, 16 tackles, 5 pass defense, and 1 interception. He is a sophomore, but if you couldn't tell there is obviously a theme, and Lincoln Riley's
senior.
right.
Senior.
Senior. I mean, it is a very experienced group, a very physical group, a group that has played together for a long time. And in my opinion, that's why I said, yes, everyone wants to see how USC's defense responds this week. We want the defense to get better, but I think all eyes, in my opinion, are going to be on USC's offense going up against this Notre Dame defense this week.
What does it give an experienced defense? Like, okay, on the whole, if you're an experienced defense, you have chemistry with each other, you can play well together, but then you're an experienced defense that has gone against this Caleb Williams offense. It feels like there's a lot of advantages pointing towards this Notre Dame defense.
Yeah, and the biggest issue that I think they're going to fix from a year ago is they allowed Caleb Williams to run the football. He did a great job of getting outside the pocket. They didn't pressure us a ton last week. 4-man rush, 3-man rush, allowed
last
Caleb
year.
Williams. Yeah, last year. I'm sorry, not last week. Last year, allowed Caleb to run. Remember how many plays he had from the game a year ago where he's backpedaling, running around, making guys miss?
Yeah,
I mean, he had so many explosive plays. I think they're going to absolutely pressure us this year. I think they're going to bring, and they are a pressure football team. They are a very, very much so a pressure football team this year. They love to bring Bertrand. They love to bring a couple of their nickel players as well. They'll bring their safety off the edge a couple times.
So they've evolved in that sense?
Yeah, I would say so, but I mean, they've always been a pressure team. They're physical. They're 4 down front. They'll shift to a 3 down, get to a 5 down. They like to bring pressure. They like to get after the backfield, but I think their plan from last year was, let's play coverage, allow our front 4 to get home, not allow Caleb Williams to run around or to allow guys to get open. We'll let them run around a little bit, but not let guys get open. That didn't work, right? He had multiple rushing touchdowns that game, had a couple passing as well. I think their plan this year, and I'm, again, just guessing, but going off of what didn't work last year, I think we're going to see them light us up a little bit this year and bring a lot of pressure and let Bertrand kind of dictate the line of scrimmage. And he'll walk up, pretend like he's coming to back off. They'll go 2 linebackers in the B gap. They'll walk up in the A gap. They do a lot of different looks up front, but this year I think we're going to see a lot more pressure than we did last year because that didn't work, and Caleb hurt them a ton running around. He had all the time in the world to make guys miss, and then he would take off and pick up 15, 20 yards on the ground as well.
Which means kind of the opposite of your point when talking about USC's defense. It's going to be about the men in the trenches for USC offensive line, and we've seen them have some struggles in a rowdy road environment. This is the game to prove that they've improved from that performance.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that. That's the most important thing this week is, and you're not going to take the fans out of it, right? It's USC Notre Dame. We could be up by 5 touchdowns. They're still going to be talking trash and screaming and yelling.
I mean, we saw that at Colorado.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter. We're not going to take the fans out of it, but we need to eliminate them getting momentum from our mistakes. And what I mean by that is no pre-snap penalties, and I love that you said that. We can't have pre-snap penalties. Cannot happen. And if you do, you have 1 or 2 here and there, okay, fine, but that cannot happen this week. You cannot allow a false start because you see the clips all the time, right? We come out for that first drive or second drive. You get a false start. The crowd thinks, hey, that was us. We caused that. Let's get a little bit, and then they get more loud, and it makes it tougher as an offense. Now, this week's going to be huge. Again, pre-snap penalties, no delay of games. Caleb has to be on point there, has to have communication. Now, a big part of that is getting the call from Lincoln Riley, getting the signal from Lincoln Riley, and then immediately telling everybody else, communicating that with the offensive line. I put in my notes as well, huge week for Caleb and Dedich to be on the same page. They have to block out all that noise. They have to understand what Notre Dame's doing up front. They have a very physical front seven. They have a great defensive line, but they're not great in pass rush. They only have 11 sacks on the year so far, so they struggle a little bit in pass rush. They do a great job of coverage in the back end, and that's where some of their sacks come from, but they're not going to pin their ears back and dominate in pass rush. Now, they're good physical at the point of attack, but they're not great at getting upfield. So Caleb and Justin Dedich being on the same page will be huge in protection. And also, Marshawn Lloyd and Austin Jones have to be ready for that nickel pressure, be ready for that secondary pressure like we saw a little bit against Colorado.
In your notes, too, you said have to win this week against man-to-man. So if you're USC's wide receivers, how do you take that next step?
Yeah, we struggled last week against Arizona. That concerned me. I'm not going to lie. Arizona came out and said, hey, we're going to rush. And again, what they didn't do against Washington, we're not going to keep everything in front of us. We're going to rush Caleb. We're going to bring pressure on Caleb, and we're going to trust our defenders to play man-to-man. And they did that, and they played very well in man-to-man. That's something this week that I expect Notre Dame to do. They do. They're not a big. They'll play zone and man. They'll mix up. But when it's crunch time, when it's red zone, when it's got to have it situations, Notre Dame last week against Louisville played a ton of man-to-man. And you best believe they're going to watch that film last week from Arizona and saw how much we struggled in this game to get off of man coverage and get off of press coverage. I would expect to see the same this week. But what better week as an offense to have your first kind of down game of the year, and now you get a chance for that bounce back game to be against a very good Notre Dame defense and prove to the country that we can come out and go on the road against Notre Dame and dominate on offense and show why we are the best offense in all of college football.
I don't know if it's something about like the tone when you get into preview mode, but like I get so antsy for these games.
I know.
I'm ready to run through a wall.
I wish it was Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm glad you do too, because I am too. Well, I feel like that yesterday when I'm at home doing prep. Like I watch the film and I'm just like, chomping at the bit, ready to go. Yeah, and it's so much fun. And yes, and I said that at the beginning of the episode. It's Notre Dame week, so
it is Notre Dame week.
You do feel a little heightened sense of excitement. And we talked about earlier, this team's we're 6-0 and still getting a lot of negativity, not only from around the country, but some still Trojan fans who, fine, justified, who are still on the fence. Hey, is this a national contender? Is the defense there yet? Is the offense struggle like they did last week? Is that going to be consistent? There's a lot of question marks. So in my opinion, as a player, you love that knowing, hey, what better week to silence all the doubters, to all the outsiders looking in, to come out and prove that we're a good football team and get this USC fan base excited about being a national contender going forward.
This is the game, right?
This is the game. This is the game to do it. This is the first challenge, true test this year to where you can say, okay, this is yes, the ranking's not going to show that, but in my opinion, Notre Dame is a top 10, top 15 football team. They lost a close one to Ohio State. They shouldn't have lost. Louisville played very well last week. They lost that game on the road. Still think that they're a very good football team despite that score from last week. It just, some of those games you're going to be off, right? And you see it around the country. But overall, this is going to be the toughest challenge USC face, and it's going to tell us a lot about this football team going forward as we get ready to play Oregon, as we get ready to play Washington, Utah, UCLA. Obviously, Cal's thrown in there too. But it's going to be and all these defenses that we're about to face are very good defenses. So what better way for our offense to get back on track than this game?
Alrighty. Any other thoughts before we go to the keys?
No, I can breathe now. Take a deep breath. I can't wait. I'm excited for this game. We've got to be able to, and Trojan fans, if you're in South Bend, be loud. Let's show up. There's nothing better than walking out in Notre Dame territory, or not even walking out of the tunnel, but driving up in the buses and seeing the Cardinal gold sprinkled with the green. And it's it's such a cool experience. If you're going to the game this weekend, I'm jealous. I know you get to go, obviously, but
so excited.
Trojan fans go and support us and represent us well. I'm excited. Let's be loud. Let's be supportive. And let's keep that shillelagh here in Southern California.
Alrighty, well, on that note, Cody, it's time to get into the USC Pharmacy prescription to win, the keys to the game for USC versus Notre Dame. First up, control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, this is going to be the most physical opponent that USC has faced so far this year on both sides of the football. And this is going to tell us a lot about this Trojan football team and their physicality going forward to the second half of this schedule. And in my opinion, this game is going to be won or lost in the trenches on Saturday.
And the second key to the game, contain running back Audric Estime.
Yeah, Estime is one of the better running backs in all of college football. Has 105 carries for 692 yards so far this season, averaging 6.6 yards a carry on the ground. And last week against Louisville, they did such a great job of limiting Notre Dame in the run game and taking away Estime. He had 10 carries for 20 yards, and it really forced Notre Dame to throw the football to win, and it took away the balanced attack that they want to have on the offensive side of the ball.
And the third and final point is for USC's offense. Get back on track and score early and often.
Yeah, an uncharacteristic performance last week against Arizona, something we're not used to seeing from this Lincoln Riley offense, but what better way to get back on track this week against a very good Notre Dame defense? And let's get the lead early on. Notre Dame loves to control the pace of the game and have a balanced attack on offense. Let's force them to be one-dimensional and try to keep up with this high-powered USC offense.
Alrighty, Cody, like I previewed, a lot of questions to get to this week. But before we do, just want to give thanks to Audi. What if there was a portal to the future? Enter the fully electric Audi Q4 e-tron with an advanced touchscreen infotainment system. Audi, the future awaits. And take your health to the next level with Symbiotica. Their premium, easy-to-take supplements fuel your body with key vitamins and minerals to help you reach peak performance on and off the field. Elevate your health today by going to Symbiotica.com and use code FIGHTON for 15% off site-wide. I could see you getting excited.
Fight on. Minerals, baby.
I got it.
Yeah.
I got it. I said it.
Hey, that was one take too.
I was getting too excited before I finished. And
That was
hopefully
great.
y'all got what I was trying to say there.
Yeah, say that again. Just one more time.
No, it's fine.
For
it's
the code?
fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Use code FIGHTON for 15% off site wide. There
Fight
you go.
on.
There you go.
There we go.
First question comes from Joe. And he says, do you think USC will use Shane Lee more to stop Notre Dame's run game?
Yeah, that's a great question, Joe. And that's something that I alluded to earlier in this episode. Are we going to see more nickel this week? Are we going to see, with the strong run game that Notre Dame has, a little bit more of a physical presence? Are we going to see Cobb, Curtis, Davis, Cobb, Curtis, Shane Lee? Shane Lee played a little bit there in the second half or in overtime as well.
Crunch time.
And crunch time against Arizona. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that. But that's going to be a huge thing for me this week is, and I know we've talked about it before, how the linebacker rotation is going to go, but now we're playing a different type of opponent than we're used to seeing with these spread air raid type offenses. So I can't wait to see how Coach Grinch and this defense goes about personnel this week.
Well, to your point, LG wanted to know how would you specifically scheme to slow down the rushing game from Notre Dame?
Yeah, kind of like what we just said. I'm loading the box there. I'm trusting our corners to cover on the outside until they can't, right? If that starts becoming an issue and we're getting the ball thrown over our head, then we may have to play a little more too high, play a little more zone. But I'm starting off this football game. I'm loading the box. I'm coming downhill. I'm bringing safeties down in the box and may even play, like I said, a lot more base personnel instead of nickel and put 3 linebackers on the box and force them to throw the football.
So to that point, we got a question from Lobo who said USC could be out some corners. Do we see Christian Pierce or Jalen Smith next in line? If you're not using Jalen Smith as a nickel, do you put him at corner?
That is a fantastic point too. And I didn't even think that until you just said that right now. I mean, that would be, and it's not like Notre Dame, outside of their tight ends, they're not huge receivers, right? Just going over who their guys are. They have, and especially their transfer or their running back that transitioned to receiver, Chris Tyree, 5'9", 190 pounds. Then you have Jaden Thomas, 6'1", 220. Jaden Greathouse, 6'1", 215. So these aren't 6'5", 6'6" wide receivers. I'm totally fine with putting Jalen Smith out there playing man-to-man coverage if we can't use him in nickel, because obviously he's on the field a lot. There's someone that the coaching staff likes to have out on the field. If you're not going to play nickel this week, let's find another way to put him out there. And if that's putting him at corner with some of the guys that have injuries issues this week, I'm totally fine with it.
Rama said the weather for Saturday is calling for rain. How hard is it to play in rain, and can you replicate that in practice?
You can to an extent. Now, we would have wet ball drill, right? So obviously the coaches would come out and get water bottle, the Gatorade bottles filled with water, center quarterback exchange, how we would start every practice, soak them. I mean, completely soak them. They'd have buckets full of water, dip the ball in there. Because people think, the ball gets slippery, which it does, but it also gets a little bit heavier as well because it soaks in some of that water.
I've never thought of that.
And the ball absolutely gets a little bit heavier. It gets a little bit more, it's tougher, obviously, to grip, but they would soak some of the footballs as well, allow them to get heavier, have them be slippery, and then we would go do center quarterback exchange, right? Take some under center, take some in shotgun. Then we would go throw routes on air, soak them in water for a little bit, spray them. Then you're spraying your hands, getting them soaked. Matt Barkley would do too. I don't know how cold it's going to be, but I learned from Matt Barkley, he would bring out an ice pack with him and get used to putting his hand in the ice pack because your hand's going to be a little bit colder.
Yeah.
So you got to get used to, okay, now my hands are colder. Now my hands are a little bit numb. Get used to holding the football that way. So I learned from him. And those were more so Colorado games or maybe Notre Dame later in the season. Or if we had, Oregon this year, I think will be a cold, wet, rainy game. That's another game you can kind of do that. But those were just ways that we would try to get a little bit of advantage. But it is tough to replicate rain living in Southern California where it doesn't rain a whole lot.
Yeah.
Especially when you haven't practiced in it a ton. Now, we got some rain in the offseason this year, which will help a little bit. But
that practice that you and I watched.
Bring your umbrella. I'll say that. But I saw a funny video, too, where they had, like, one of the little grass sprayers.
It looked like Roundup.
Yeah, everyone thought we were spraying our guys with Roundup, but it's smart though. But any advantage that you can find, right? You know that you have the noise, the sound, you have the speakers falling around for the away games. You have any time you play in an atmosphere that's not used to what you're playing at, you've got to find a way to get a little bit of an advantage. And if that's, spraying the water on the players or getting the wet ball drill, all that, you have to incorporate this week. And obviously USC's already been doing that.
Now, we have many questions on the offensive side of the ball asking. We got it from Joe, Chad, Manny, more. Do you think Notre Dame will copy what Arizona did? Specifically, do you think they'll replicate the 7 defensive back look that Arizona ran last week?
Yeah, I don't know if they'll go 7 defensive backs, but I do think 2 things that they're going to do that Arizona did a good job of from last week is bring pressure, get pressure on Caleb, and play man-to-man. I think this game is going to be, can we get away from man-to-man coverage, and can our offensive line hold up long enough? And that's why keys to the game, this game, in my opinion, is going to be won in the trenches, right? Caleb Williams is the best quarterback in all of college football, of being elusive, of getting outside the rush, of breaking contain, finding guys downfield. But it's tough to consistently do that if there's a lot of pressure on you, and if guys can't get open downfield in man-to-man coverage, it's tough to have those explosive plays. So I think they're going to take out of their book. I don't know if we're going to see 7 DBs from Notre Dame. Will they? Can they? Sure. Yeah. I mean, is that a possibility? But I think the 2 things, no matter what personnel grouping they have, is going to be get pressure on Caleb and play man-to-man coverage this week and see if we can win.
We got a question from Judy who said, which version of our offense do you think will show up? First half versus Colorado offense or first half versus Arizona offense? And I just want to give a shout out to Judy. First of all, OG listener from the start. But I feel like this is like the quote unquote Judy Bowl just because she's a Trojan fan who works at Notre Dame, lives in South Bend. So like I feel like this is the Super Bowl for her right now.
She's behind enemy lines over there right now. Yeah. And she won last year. I remember a giveaway because she said when she won, by the way, I'm Trojan fan support. I got to have the sweatshirt support Cardinal and Gold over here in Notre Dame territory. Yeah. So shout out to Judy. And we love all the Trojan fans living in South Bend going to the game. Let's show up. Let's have our Cardinal and Gold pride there and let's get after them. But I'm going with the offense that we're used to seeing from Lincoln Riley. I'm going with the offense against Colorado in the first half. The offense that's the best in college football right now, right? We're first in points per game. I think we're first or second in yards per game. We're up there as well in passing yards per game. So, and I would find it highly unlikely to see Caleb Williams, to see Lincoln Riley allow what happened last week to happen this week again. And obviously they're going to be prepared and take that personal from a week ago and come out and perform this week. And it's not going to be, and obviously it's college football, it's Division I, everyone's tough. It's not going to be easy no matter who you're playing, but this is a very good defense. This is going to be a lot more difficult than some of the defenses that we have faced so far this year. Yeah. So I think the intensity is going to be up a little bit, and I think that's going to force this Trojan offense to play better than what we've seen so far this season.
Manny said, what's the best way to expose this Irish defense?
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, you have to win man-to-man. Have to win man-to-man, and we have to get the run game going as well. We have to be able to run the football, to create a balanced look, to force Notre Dame to have to play both, right? The biggest thing that Louisville did well was run the football. They had a couple explosive plays on the ground there that they finished in the end zone on a 40-yard run, on a 35-yard run, on a 20-yard run. These explosive plays that forced Notre Dame to be on their heels a little bit, and then that opens up the RPOs. That opens up the play-action passing. That opens up Caleb getting a roll out off of play-action, doing all these different things you can do, but it's so tough as a quarterback to be fully productive in the pass game if you don't have a strong run game going along with it.
Jorge wanted to know, he has 2 questions. Can the offense control the clock in the fourth quarter? And what is the location and time in Chicago for the pre-celebratory meetup with the Victory Podcast team? Unfortunately, I'm traveling with the team. I don't think we're even going to be in Chicago. And Cody, you're not even going.
Yeah, I'm not going. I'll be here watching from home.
Yes.
Still representing my Cardinal and Gold, probably yelling at my TV. So I'm going to be a little more tense for this game. But I'll be watching from home. And what was the first question?
How does the offense control the clock in the fourth quarter?
Like I just said, we got to be able to run the football. We did against Arizona. That last drive there against Arizona last week, before we went into overtime, was the Marshawn Lloyd show, right? We had Marshawn Lloyd, huge run to get us in field goal position to ultimately, or have a chance to win the football game. Obviously, we saw what happened there, but we leaned on the run game in the fourth quarter, and that allowed our offense to finish with the ball in our hand. Now, obviously, we would have loved to see that kick go in, the operation go well, and win the football game and get out of there. But we finished with the football in our hand because we ran it there at the end and we trusted our offensive line and our run game. So that's going to be, and even if we have the lead or if it's a close game, you don't have to completely abandon the run, right? You have to be able to run the football and control the clock and control the pace of play to finish with the football in your hands.
Evan said, do you think we're going to see Lake McCree hurdle another Notre Dame defender?
I can't wait. I'll say this. That was and that just flashback to Trojan tailgate, breaking down that play. That was awesome to see and the Coliseum going wild. But I can't wait to see how creative Lincoln Riley's going to be, right? And we've got a lot of questions about, are we saving plays? Are we saving stuff? You don't save plays. Obviously, you play to your opponent. But I know for a fact this week, Lincoln Riley's going to be in his bag of tricks and have some plays that are going to be because you're playing a good defense, right? You have to up your play calling. You have to up your offensive line play, your quarterback play. Everything has to go up a degree when you're playing against a dominant defense, and especially playing a rival team and a team that is very good playing at home, right? We're going to go on the road. It's going to be a loud environment. Everything has to get better collectively, not only on offense, but on all three phases of the game. So I can't wait to see what Lincoln Riley does this week, and I'm going to be breaking it down, obviously, as I watch. But I can't wait to watch the film after the game as well and see what he does so well and how they attack this Notre Dame defense.
Speaking of trick plays or tricks up his sleeve in Lake McCree, I feel like triple overtime was so wild. We didn't even really make the point that Lake McCree was the one who snapped the final the ball.
Yeah, that was and we got a question about that. And obviously, I just saw it's going to be on the Instagram one.
Okay.
But it was, can you draw it up? I can't. Obviously, I don't have the all-22, but watching it back, we don't have the whiteboard either. But so the reason that play was called, and I'll explain a little bit too when I get to my questions, you go in each week, and in the same college, NFL, you have like one or two-point plays. And those are unique plays, right? Those are, and you'd think, no, it's just a play you'd normally run from the 2 or 3 yard line. No, it's unique play. You only have 2 of them. So now that this has changed, and it may be different in college now because of the new rules of by the third overtime, you have to have a bunch of 2-point plays. But 2-point plays are where you normally see the most unique, funky, like a pitch pass, a fake, a trick play, because, and for whatever reason, it's been like this in college and the NFL. You only have like 1 or 2 of those that you expect to run a game. But yeah, that was, I didn't know what was going on there. I was a little concerned. I was a little nervous. I trust Lincoln Riley, so I wasn't too worried. But again, Caleb saved the day there. That should have been a stop there. He did a great job of giving an in and out step there on that defender and getting to the pylon. But yeah, that was a funky look. That was a rollout too. So it was Lake McCree snapping it and then allowed all 3 players on this side to be eligible to be able to run a route. So it was just a unique look, and hats off to Arizona. They did a good job of stopping it. But again, we have Superman and Caleb Williams, and he found a way to get in the end zone.
2 USC receivers also tripped themselves. So
yeah, they ran into each other on that bunch. But I was trying not to say all that. But
sorry.
Yes, the play did not go probably how Lincoln Riley and the staff envisioned.
He joked about it, so that's why I said it.
Good.
Speaking of weirdness, Will wanted to know what happened in the punt play where we tried to toss that Arizona player to the ball. Is that even allowed?
I don't know. I think it is allowed. So you're taught. Now, I didn't play a ton of special teams, but you are taught if there's a player close, you can block them into the football. I don't know if there's a rule of, now you can't grab them and throw them. That's a holding call, I'm assuming. I guess, can you get a holding call, though, if you're the punt team? I don't know. I don't know if that's, now you can, obviously on the snap, if they're trying to block it, you can get a holding call, but I don't know if you can get a holding call on a returner before you down a ball. I don't know, but I do know that you are taught to block, you can block them or push them into there. No, it looked like we were trying to grab him and bear hug him, and I don't know. I mean, they didn't call a penalty, so it is, I guess, somewhat legal. But, and now, I mean, if he would have touched the football, would that have counted? Is that what I'm assuming the question is?
I see. Okay. I
know. I'm trying to talk about special teams like I played special teams a lot. I was a quarterback.
You were a holder, though.
I was a holder for 2 years.
See, I feel like I'm not a parent, but you know how they say that like kids ask questions that you don't know the answer to?
Yeah.
My interns were like, what happened on that play? Is that legal? And I was like,
yeah, I don't know if it's legal, but I do know that there are, on punt teams, you are absolutely taught if you have a chance to block or push them into it. Now, but I just don't know if you can grab them and pull them like we were doing. But again, there was no penalty, so let's keep doing it, see if it works again.
Savannah said, Oregon State has the chainsaw. Does Notre Dame have something as annoying/distracting? Is that why it's so tough to win there, or is the crowd just that loud? USC hasn't won since 2011, if you didn't know. Yeah. At South Bend.
Thanks for reminding us.
I'm sorry. They know that.
I was on some of those teams. But anyways.
Whoopsies. Sorry.
I will say, though, in 2014, we won here, and it was a very, what we did, so 2011, obviously we won there. That was Matt Barkley's year. Awesome. Amazing. Before I get to this question, 2013, should have won. had a whole. I don't know if you remember that game.
Is this what Jordan brought up in the group chat?
Yes, they had a ghost holding call on big Aubrey Walker, which, in my opinion, and watching it back, was not a holding call.
Okay.
And got down to the 1 yard line with barely any time left. All we had to do was punch it in, and we win the game. Run the clock out, and then punch it in.
Yeah.
Got a holding call that took us all the way back to like the 30 or 40. Anyways, we get up. 2015 back and forth game. They ended up winning. 2014 though, we did win, I think 49-14 or something. So
is that the Dory game, the 3 touchdowns, or was that not you? Was that Darnold?
That the game where he had like the kick and the punt and all that. No, that was the year after at SC. But yeah, no. So we haven't. Okay. Anyways, but
sorry.
Yeah, that touched the nerve there if you couldn't tell. But we did my junior year make up for it and did throw 6 touchdowns against them. That's humble brag. Fun fact too, and I don't ever brag, but there's only one person in the history of the world to throw 6 touchdowns against Notre Dame in their 100 and whatever years they've been around.
Right. I tried to find it last year.
Yeah. So
whoop, whoop.
I say that, and I normally, for those of you who watch this show a ton, I hate talking about myself.
You hate
but
bragging.
You just brought up a negative stat, so I had to feel like I had to reinforce it with a little bit of positive because I was involved in the negative side of that. But
didn't mean it like that.
Back to the question.
Sure.
I don't think I know they do play the song, the Dropkick Murphy song.
Dun, dun.
Yeah, the dun na 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 na, which is unbelievable. That is a cool. I know the coolest, especially if it's a night game there. Just the coolest atmosphere.
The environment is so amazing.
Oh, it's
like what football dreams are made of.
Yes, exactly. It's what as a kid growing up, that's what you dream about playing in those type of games. Like the Penn State whiteout games. Notre Dame before that, sold out Coliseum. Those are the games you love playing in.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they have third down is obviously chainsaw for Oregon State every third down. I don't know if they have something throughout the game.
I don't think so. I think it's just a tough environment.
Yeah,
their fans are very passionate. Usually always have great football teams. Like it's just an environment where you have to be on your P's and Q's to execute a win there.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got a question from, I think, Jake and Matt. The notes are kind of confusing here, but they said, what's better to win? Which rivalry game is better to win, Notre Dame or UCLA? Both, obviously, but if you had to pick just one.
Yeah, I mean, that's tough. It's tough for me to pick one because I've played in both, and they both felt equally as good. But I'm going to go, I mean, UCLA is probably one that makes the most sense just because of crosstown rivalry. I mean, you have so many guys that could have probably gone either way. You know, guys from the area, local, one to go to SC, one to go to UCLA, could have gone both ways. But I don't know, it's tough. That game against Notre Dame, holding the shillelagh and at the Coliseum was probably one of my favorite all-time memories as well. So it's tough. Then you have the victory bell. So it's a tough
I'll
say this. I'll take the safe route and say they both have
womp womp
their own positives, I guess. Yeah.
Mark said, have you ever seen a quarterback pick up a defender while being tackled? That was insane. That second Caleb touchdown.
Oh, yeah.
That was insane.
Yeah, I almost looked away from the screen. I thought it was done.
Yeah.
I said, oh, they stuffed us. And then he kept going. I looked back up and I'm like, what's going on? But yeah, that's just, hey, will to win, right? Talent, all that, everything, but when it comes to effort and how bad do you want it, that absolutely is a factor. And that showed, and you could tell at the end of the game there, like he struggled throughout the entire game, but he did the crown on the head and all that, even though he didn't have one of his better games at SC, but that's how much of an emotional football player he is, and that's how much it means to him. Yeah, just how much it means to him and how bad he wants to win.
Already, and the last one is from Jonathan, who said, Cody, what's your favorite type of silent count for loud places like Notre Dame, leg lift, arm out, etc.?
Yeah, I like leg lift. I've always been a fan of anything silent. I know some teams now like to clap. I know SC does the clap a lot. I just, in a football environment and in a football stadium, that's a very common sound. So it makes me a little nervous of knowing when, is that our quarterback doing it? Is the defense? Now you get a penalty as a defender trying to mimic a snap count, but I've always been a fan of the guard looking back or the center, whoever it may be, looking back and either doing a leg lift or putting your hand down. But yeah, I'm more of I lean towards, especially in an away environment, I lean more towards the visuals.
Makes sense. Okay, I don't know if I mentioned that, but that was the last question that I have.
Yes, you did.
So I now have random.org pulled up, Cody.
Let me get the list.
We had 61 entries this past week, and it is for merch since it is an away game this week. And I'm just going to hit generate if I may do so myself.
Yes.
41.
That is from Twitter. That is Lewis Watch. Lewis.
Woo.
Let me look
or
that
walk.
Up. Yeah, well, hold on. Let me type it in. It's Lewis _WACH. Yeah, walk, I guess. Would it be walk?
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously they already follow us. So Lewis Walk, and then the @ is also Lewis_Walk, LOUIS_WACH.
There you go.
So congratulations, Lewis. You are the first winner.
Okay, and the second one is 17.
17 is from Instagram. That is PJBUSC. PJB.
You're better than me because I read that as PBJUSC.
Yeah, it's because we've been in here for a while and we're hungry. Okay, PJBUSC. Name is Paul, not a full name, but the username is @PJBUSC. So, Paul, congratulations.
Woo!
You are the second winner. So, first winner is Lewis Walk, however you pronounce it. I apologize if I'm butchering the name. And then the second one is PJBUSC, also known as Paul.
Dun, 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 dun. Oh, we have to do emojis.
Oh, we do have to do emojis.
I was about to go into your question segment.
I was ready for my question segment. All
okay.
right.
I have mine ready to go, Cody. I am prepared here at the Victory
You are
Podcast.
prepared.
No, I'm just kidding.
I am going to go random. I was gonna go like a 4-leaf clover, but I feel like that's supporting
The vibes.
Yeah,
would
I don't
be
want
off.
that. No, I don't want that. I'm gonna go random. I'm gonna go with headphones. Headphones. They're a pair
Okay.
of, I don't know why I thought of that because I'm wearing some, but it's a pair of white headphones. You type in headphones, it pops up. So I'm going headphones.
Okay. I was just going to go, it's a classic matchup of football. I feel like we haven't done that in a while.
Okay, well now mine makes 0 sense, but
It's fine.
perfect.
It's random.
Yeah, it is random.
It's
It is random.
random.
So-
or like podcast of football. Who knows?
yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go.
See?
Headphones.
See? I
and a
listened
football.
and here's the football.
And then also, if this is your first time listening to the show, how you can
Thank you for
win
listening.
is, thank you for listening. First of all, I'm glad, hopefully you've made it this far. I don't know how long this episode is going to be, probably in a longer one, but
Yes.
if you want a chance to win, you can respond with the emojis on Twitter, but if you respond on Twitter, you have to be following myself, Keely, and the Victory Pod there. And then if you respond on Instagram, you have to be following myself, Keely, and the Victory Pod on Instagram. And again, you can respond below our tweets, below Instagram pictures, any of that post, direct message, however you want to respond. You just have to be following on that platform. And then again, we will be doing apparel for next week, and those will be a USC hat, USC sweatshirt, USC long sleeve shirt, or a USC short sleeve shirt. And again, I can sign it, Keely can sign it, we both can sign it, or it can be unsigned.
No pressure.
No pressure, which Keely always says.
Yes. We don't care.
But again, so if you want to win this week, listen to the episode. Don't just skip ahead to the emoji part. Please listen to the whole episode, or you can do whatever you want, honestly. But then if you respond with the emojis, we'll put your name on random.org, and then we pick 2 winners every week for the giveaway. And with that being said,
Now I got to toss it to you, Cody.
now
It's
it's my
time for
time.
the Cody Instagram question
it is. And I'm going to be
segment.
quick.
Take us home, Cody. Close us out.
I am going to take us home. I got a lot again this week. If they're repeat questions or if they're questions we've already got before, then I will obviously skip them. The first one is from Braden Ross. Cody, what is so different about playing in South Bend compared to other road games? Just that first of all, the history there is unbelievable.
point.
Yeah, the history there is unbelievable, but also just it's a rival, right? It's the same as kind of playing in the Rose Bowl. Like, it means a little bit more. The fans dislike you or hate you a little bit more than other teams that come in and play in South Bend or come play at the Coliseum. So there's just a little bit more of an atmosphere there. And I just, again, the history behind USC and Notre Dame playing at that Notre Dame Stadium or at the Coliseum is unbelievable. Second to none. I'm a little biased, but I think it's the best rivalry in all of college football, as well as USC and UCLA. But again, I might be biased. The next one is from Ron from LA, Lower Alabama. How many sacks and loss of yards will USC get on Notre Dame? We're rolling up front right now. I'm going 5 sacks, 4 sacks. No, I'm going 5 sacks because Louisville last week also had 5 sacks on Notre Dame. Did a great job getting after Sam Hartman. I'm going 5 sacks, and loss of yards is tough to pick, but I'm gonna go 7 or 8 tackles for loss as well. We've been very good in both of those departments. The next one is from That Daddy Manny. Can you break down the play to best attack the Notre Dame defense? I don't know.
The play.
Yeah, the play. There's really not the play, but the game plan for me is, like I mentioned, let's be balanced, but let's start off running the football, right? Let's force Notre Dame to come up and stop the run, and then let's use play action to our advantage and throw the football over their heads. And if they want to play man-to-man against us like Arizona did last week, we've got to be able to improve from that and come out and attack them in the secondary. If they're playing man-to-man, you have to look at that as a sign of disrespect, saying we're going to play man-to-man and stop your playmakers you have on the field. We have one of the best offenses, if not the best offense in college football. We need to go out there and man-to-man. Let's take some shots. Let's throw the ball over their head and take advantage early on. The next one is from Notch_. I'm going to the game Saturday. I hope our defense makes all the haters look silly. Beat the Irish. Let's go, Notch. Beat the Irish. The next one is from Jonathan Joe. What are some silent counts you practice used, and how do they work? Again, we touched on this a little bit. I just love the leg lift Normally you'd go leg lift, the guard's looking at you, taps the center, lets them know that you're ready to go, or the same thing with the hand signal, and then other players will use the clap as well. The next one is from Brian Zarski. Do you think all the outside noise on the defense is more distracting or motivating? I think it's more motivating, in my opinion. I would use that as motivation. I remember as a player, first I'd block you, then I'd use it as motivation. And the funny thing is, too, when I would get negative heat.
First, I would block you.
Well, I would get heat from fans or media, whatever, and I would just block it and not see it. But I'd weirdly screenshot a lot of those, too, and reread them later on. But I blocked them as well. So
goodness.
Kind of a funny push and pull there. The next one is from Massacuda 9. Saw you up close in the action. Saw you up close to the action in the end zone. How did that feel not being able to play? I'm assuming he's talking about on Saturday against Arizona.
I posted an Insta story.
Oh, yeah, sitting down.
First of all,
my football knees.
I like when you host on Trojan Tailgate because I get Cody commentary for at least like one quarter, which I love. I really do love it. And so you started to get kind of tired of standing on the sideline, and you went and found a chair and just sat on the sideline with a chair.
I even said, I said, I'm going to steal one of the chairs from the media tent.
You look like when you bring your grandma to the mall and you're just like, sit here while we try on clothes.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
Wow. I will say in my defense, though, I had been on my feet, and I'm not saying people don't are on their feet all day. It's tough, though. When you're on your feet walking around, it's fine. But doing the Trojan tailgate,
I'm just
standing in one spot the whole time. I'm just
giving you a hard time.
Locking your knees out.
I know.
But yes, do I miss playing, or did I want to be out there? Absolutely. As a former player, you always, watching back home brings back a ton of memories, or watching from the field brings back a ton of memories. Always want to be out there with the guys. The next one is from Jake Lamb. Looks like it will rain. Looks like it'll be a rain game. Did you prepare for rain games while at SC? If so, how? Again, the water bottle is pouring water on the footballs and then putting them in the buckets as well to make them a little bit heavier. The next one is from David, USC 708. Do you think the offense is rotating too many receivers? Do QBs like that much variety? It's actually a great question. Now, we have great depth at that position, but last week we only had 6 different players catch a pass. That's the least amount we've seen all season. So I think we're starting to see a little bit more of a consistent rotation there at receiver. And as a quarterback, you like to have that continuity, that consistency. It's tough playing a lot of guys and trying to get in a rhythm with all those different players. But when you have that many playmakers on the offensive side of the ball, it's tough not to get them on the field. So I'm torn on that one, but that's a great question. The next one is from Brian Figueroa at 15. Which key players do we need to step up to make an impact on the game this weekend? Offensive line, defensive line. I'm sticking with that. I think this game is going to be won or lost in the trenches, both on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. The next one is from Chadster. Do you think the defensive approach will be different given the strength of Notre Dame's run game? Absolutely, Chad. I'm going with, I think we're going to see a different personnel for the first time this year. I think we may see a 3-linebacker look. Keely made a great point. Maybe we take Jalen Smith out of nickel, put him at corner, rotate him at different areas on the field. But I do think we're going to see a little bit different package on the defensive side of the ball because of the opponent that we're playing. The next one from Sean Kessler. For you to get in touch and find out if we're related, my dad is also from Bakersfield. Last name Kessler. Who knows?
Cousins.
Yeah, cousins. Who knows? The next one is from Jack Rosenberg, 27. What was the coolest part of playing in South Bend? Just love being in enemy territory, the hatred they have for you, the small locker room, the visiting locker room, knowing that everyone, it's pretty much you against the world and the few Trojan fans that do go to South Bend. So just such a cool atmosphere. And then obviously the game they play, the Dropkick Murphys game right before kickoff is awesome. The next one is from Josh Harden 1. How disrespectful is it having a one-loss Texas team higher in the polls than a 6-0 Trojans team? Josh, I mean, I get it. I get frustration with that. Every right to be frustrated knowing that we're undefeated. But at the end of the day, none of it really matters until the college football playoff comes out. And also, if we just keep winning football games, we're going to be right where we want to be at the end of the season. So, yes, there's going to take into account one team may have one loss, look better than the other. There are going to be people who say that. But at the end of the day, if you continue to win football games, it doesn't matter at the end of the year. The next one is from CP13. Would you rather face a good team coming off a loss or one that's undefeated? It's a great question. It really is a good question. It's because it goes back to the saying is, as an undefeated team, you're high and mighty. You have everything going for you. You've got a ton of rhythm. Everyone's happy. Food tastes better, right? Sleep's a little bit better. Everything's going a little bit better. But then if you have that one loss, you're a little bit more hungry. You have something to prove. So I'm going with a team that's undefeated. I think it's a little bit easier to face a team that's undefeated just because they haven't faced that loss yet or haven't had that adversity. But again, they're undefeated for a reason, so it can be tough. The next one is from Louis Watch. If you could pick any 2 former Trojans to put on this team, who would it be?
Ooh.
I mean, you've got to go with the greatest Trojan of all time. Well, I can't say the greatest. from when I started watching.
Your era.
My era, yeah. There's been
Generation, I don't know.
Yeah. Reggie Bush.
Reggie Bush.
Could put him on any team. It's tough, though, to pick a quarterback because there's been some great ones. Obviously, some phenomenal quarterbacks.
Do you have to go quarterback?
No, you don't, because you have Caleb Williams right now, so it's tough. And we have good running backs, but Reggie Bush, I think, would be on any team no matter who because it's a rotational position. And then the other one, I'm going...
Taylor Mays.
Yeah, let's go on defense. I'm going, Taylor Mays, Brian Cushing. Put Brian
Leonard
Cushing.
Williams.
Yeah, Leonard Williams, a defensive lineman. I'm going Brian Cushing.
Okay.
I think Cushing, putting him at middle backer, rotating in that spot, and then putting Reggie Bush on offense. So those are two guys. And then the last two for me, JMC Baker 3. What are some of the players' traditions for SC Notre Dame week? Playing-wise, we don't really have any that I can remember up like practice week doing all that. I know the fans and the bands and all that have, that's what you love about Rivalry week. But playing-wise, leading up to the game, we don't really have any. I think it's just the shillelagh for us. Obviously, if you win, you get to bring it home. And then the last one is from John Thornton 949. What makes Notre Dame Stadium such a difficult place to play? What does the QB do to neutralize it? It makes it tough because, again, it's a rivalry game because of the noise. The lights are tough, too. Like, they're lower. They might have changed them now. They used to be a lot lower.
Okay.
I remember. I think they did raise them up a little bit, but it just makes it tough because of the environment, how close it is. It's a bowl. It's a tight. Everyone's like, it feels like the fans are right on your back, too. It's how close it is. It's an unbelievable atmosphere. If you ever get a chance in your life to go watch that game, please go do it.
Please.
You got to go watch one at South Bend, and then you got to watch one here, obviously, at the Coliseum.
Yeah.
But as a quarterback, doesn't matter. Block it out. I'm worried about the other 10 guys that are on the field with me. I'm worried about the defense, the players on the sideline. You got to block out all that noise, lock in and get in the zone, and go out there and get a victory.
Wow, we started the podcast with lock in, and you ended it with
lock in. My face is just as serious.
You are locked in.
I am locked in. I'm done, though. We are out. This is a huge episode. I don't know how long it's going to be.
It might not be. The recording itself is very long, but we had some technical difficulties. We'll figure it out. Hopefully this comes out Wednesday night. If it doesn't, I apologize.
Either way, though, it's Notre Dame week. It doesn't matter. This podcast is to get you ready, get you excited for the game. But if you need us to get you excited for the game, then you're not a Trojan fan because as soon as that Arizona game ended, obviously we'll talk 24-hour rule. But as soon as you look at the schedule and it says ND right there and you see the green and the gold, lock in. It's go time. If you need any extra motivation, then you're not a true Cardinal and Gold fan. You've got to be ready to go. But again, this episode, if you're a first-time listener, thank you so much for listening. All our listeners that have been consistent through the year. We love you guys so much. I guess now we can almost say years now.
Almost.
But I'm tired of hearing myself talking. I'm sure you are as well. So I am done. Love all you guys. Thank you so much for letting us do this. It's been so much fun being around USC football. Hey, we're 6-0. We're 4-0 in Pac-12 play. It's the tough half of the schedule coming up. We've got Notre Dame. We'll learn a lot about this football team on Saturday. Stay optimistic. Let's get after them. Fight on, and let's hold up that shillelagh on Saturday night.
I feel like we're starting this thing where like the listeners are in the huddle with you. Like I feel like we're ready to go.
Well, I know so many of them so well now from hearing all of them.
Sure.
From talking and just all the questions. I feel like I know them personally. I'm sure they feel the same way about us. But again,
you're in the huddle with the
new
Victory
listener,
podcast.
Old listener, whoever you are. If you're listening,
we appreciate you.
We appreciate and love all of you guys, and we're all Trojan fans. And again, we want to see this football team succeed, and let's get after it on Saturday. Fight on.
Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up. That's Cody. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next time.